Hi, everybody. Welcome to Conversations with Moxie. I'm Deb Beroset, the influence stylist and founder of Moxie Creative and Consulting, which is all about consciously creating how you show up in the world. And we work with individuals and businesses. And I'm really excited to have with me today a major heavy hitter in the impact investing world, a disruptor, as a matter of fact, and somebody who's all about for-profit, for good. Steve Distante, and just a little bit about Steve. So first of all, Steve, how we crossed paths was one of my clients, wonderful client, World Tree, which is all about for-profit, for good, eco timber company, women-led. You featured them in a documentary just recently, and then for everybody else, the trailer for that documentary, Igniting Impact, right?
Yes.
Igniting Impact was screened at the United Nations just last week. So that's how we crossed paths. A little bit more about Steve before we jump in. He is the Chief Entrepreneurial Officer of the New York-based impactful investment firm Vanderbilt Financial Group. And you have a message basically of purposeful entrepreneurship. He is a keynote speaker. He's a filmmaker, a chapter president of the Global Entrepreneur Organization, an ambassador to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And you have this amazing educational platform that I am completely wowed by, Impact U. Under Steve's leadership, Vanderbilt's been recognized with a ton of awards. Let me just skip through a couple of them. It's been recognized as one of the finest run companies by the MAP organization, the Future 50 Award, Corporate Culture Award from Smart CEO, and it was also recently named as 2018 Best Places to Work on Long Island, which says a lot right there. So Steve, first of all, welcome. Thank you so much. And I'd love to hear from you, first of all, just kind of your general philosophy about this whole notion of a business as a blank canvas.
Oh, well, I believe that an evolved entrepreneur is an artist. We like to basically paint the picture through our businesses and really show the world who we are as entrepreneurs in a meaningful way. So we're creative, and we do things in our businesses that are often disruptive, or as I like to say, blue ocean, where you have space that really is not well navigated nor well traveled, where we open those doors in a way that's meaningful for us, from our hearts, where we're really connected to it in a meaningful way. It helps us in a very big way as entrepreneurs to get through the challenges and to also be able to feel alive, because we're all about being disruptive in the world and being able to be unique. So I don't know who in the audience has been an entrepreneur, but I was born an entrepreneur. My first business, I don't know if you've heard this story, but my first business was going up to my horse trails behind the house. We lived in a neighborhood where there were horse trails, public, not mine. And I'd collect horse manure, and I'd deliver it. I'd bring it to my neighbors. She'd give me $1, Miss Barker, and she'd say, "Thank you, Stephen." And I'd say, "You're welcome." It was like my way of communicating with the world. Business was my means of communication. It was a sustainable business, right? So we had this beautiful garden that was being, grown and people eating and so on. But, as I say, I've been selling shit ever since. It's pretty much the way it is, right?
That's amazing. Yeah.
That's 10 years old. So it's been a series of businesses, but an evolved entrepreneur is mindful of what they're doing. It's not all about money.
Right. Which is really interesting. There are stereotypes out there, right, about finance guys, investment people, that it's all left hemisphere and, all about bottom line and dollar signs. I mean, tell me a little bit about what it's been like to be you. I think heart-centered is a fair term to use, right?
Yeah.
And here you are, the CEO of this financial group. What's that been like?
Yeah, the investment world is not known for people who care about what's going on around them from the perspective of things that are environmentally or socially beneficial. So it made me a unicorn from the first time I actually started exhibiting those tendencies. And in my journey, I was sitting on the board of the Entrepreneurs Organization in New York City, a very large chapter, and one of the board members is an attorney, a guy named Chintan Pancho. And Chintan said to me, he says, "What do you do?" And I said, "Well, if you Google Tesla's #1 fan or Tesla's biggest fan, I'm the first hit because of my love for electric cars. If you look at my building is a LEED Platinum building. We have a foundation, Heroes Against Heroin, to help raise money and awareness to the heroin epidemic that's going on." And he looked at me, this is probably 6, 7 years ago, and he said to me, there's a thing called impact investing, and I'm an impact attorney, and I'm the one who actually brings people deals, and I quantify not only the return they're getting, but also the social good or environmental good that they're expecting. Mm-hmm. And I said, brilliant. And then over the next few years, I brought the first Impact Summit to the area and brought people together, like-minded individuals. One year I had an 815% growth, bludgeoned me with new business. It was a blessing and a curse in that when you grow that fast, it's a challenge, right, to scale. Right. But I was inspired by a film. That whole electric car thing is a film called Revenge of the Electric Car. I don't know if you've seen it.
I haven't.
But I am a huge fan. It shows Elon Musk and GM, Bob Lutz from GM, doing battle. And Elon Musk is down to his last under $10 million, which is a big deal because he had dumped in hundreds of millions of dollars into SpaceX and into Tesla at the time. And suddenly he gets a deal with SpaceX and he's able to launch Tesla in a big way because he knew that people who live near highly trafficked areas, the exhaust would cause a lot of cancer in the people that were in those areas. So he was looking to combat that and create really great vehicles. So I became like this real passionate person around electric cars. I drive 4 of them. It's not just Tesla, but I have, many electric cars. And people often stop me and ask me, so what is it with this car? Why is this so interesting? So it's been my DNA, but I didn't know it. And in this conversation with Chintan, it was my awakening. And then throughout the time, I found that documentary films, honestly, I would have had straight A's in high school if they showed it in documentary film format, right? Because that's where a lot of us learn. And so I felt that creating films around businesses that were changing the world was really born out of that film, Revenge of the Electric Car. So that's that's the beginning of my journey.
Interesting. And now, did you say that your business grew by over 800%?
Yes. Yeah.
And let me get this straight. So that came out of a professed interest, passion, specialization on the part of your company in impact investing?
Yeah, there's a bunch of advisors out there, a lot of them, and some of them, wear tie-dye and Birkenstocks, and they're really cool people, and they've been around for a long time, and they won't tolerate investments being in things that are not congruent or in alignment with their values. So they've been around a long time, and I pay just such respect to them for being very pure and the way they've been doing it. They've been doing it a long time. It's not just a millennial thing. It's a thing that's been around a long time, and it's for people who really look to connect their investments with their passions and their values. And most people don't do that. Money's for money and passion's for passion. But guess what? It's a transference of energy, because when you earn money and it comes in, right, that's your energy out, right? Now you got that money. What are you going to do with it? You're going to put it in the bank. You're going to sleep on it. If you sleep on it, it's going to be very lumpy if you're wealthy, right?
Right.
You're going to pay it out to some other, some sort of charity or so, or you're going to invest it. And when you invest it, are you just going to say, okay, universe, give me the best return I can because I not greedily, but essentially only care about the return? Or do I care about the impact that I'm making with that money also? How do we connect with the money that we invest And there's a lot of people out there that have the same exact feelings. And we came together, and it continues to happen to this day. And truthfully, I don't want to own this space, but the reality of things is nobody else cares as much as we do. So when we talk about it, it's because it's super important to me for my legacy, for my life to be impactful. My why is to impact entrepreneurs and leaders to be impactful in the world, to inspire them to be impactful in the world, to get them thinking differently, like these sustainable development goals that are behind me, the UN sustainable development goals. That's the way I want people to think. And if we're artists now, why don't we use this as our palette to paint the picture? So the UN created the 17 sustainable development goals over a 3-year period post the Great Recession.
Mm-hmm.
The world was hurting. Occupy Wall Street was going on. The one percenters were getting hammered over the head. Truth be told, the one percenters are 60 to 70% entrepreneurs, people who do care, who do have the heart, who do want to see things happen. So the UN comes together and does something they never did before. The 193 governments that are part of the UN came together and for 3 years deliberated and collaborated on what's really going on out there in the world and what can we do for the next 15 years to make a mark, to move the needle on these challenges. So things like gender equality, no poverty, clean water, all of these things, the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, or the SDGs, are 193 governments coming together, but they call us as citizens, entrepreneurs, people to help with the cause. First time it's ever happened at the UN. It was always this kind of bureaucratic thing. So it's really awesome to be able to inspire, educate, and celebrate entrepreneurs that are making a difference in the world and igniting impact in a meaningful way out there through highlighting businesses that are doing incredible things that you're like, why didn't I think of that? Why didn't I think of that? And they're not-for-profits.
Okay, can you tell us about a couple briefly, like little inspiring examples?
Oh gosh, yeah, I can tell you. So why don't we start with the reason why we came together today, Wendy Burton, who's the CEO of World Tree. So this woman's got trees, right? Magic trees, I call them, right? They're the Empress Splendor, also known as the Paulownia tree, right? The Empress Splendor is a tree that grows to full maturity in about 10 years. But here's the magic. It's got huge leaves on it. It's a carbon-eating tree that takes all of that carbon, turns it into nutrients that go into the soil, 11 times that of any other tree that's out there. That's pretty cool. But here's the better part, right? So she partners with farmers. So a person puts money into this program. They partner with farmers. The farmers have to allocate 10 to 20 acres minimum in an area that makes sense for this tree. And they cut the tree down in around 10 years. You're like, oh, deforestation. No. These trees grow back up to 7 times from the stumps. Brilliant. Well, Guess what? The investor gets back about 10 times their money under the way these, and it's even more than that, the way these investment, and you have to get a disclosure document and you have to sign off that so I can't give you too many specifics, but the client gets a good return on the money. They basically, as they plant 1 acre trees, which are about 110 trees, they basically have wiped out their carbon footprint for the rest of their lives, right? And then maybe buy a couple more extra. But the farmer is made sustainable because post that one crop of trees, it's theirs forever. Like for the next 7 generations of this tree, they now have a tree that's eating the carbon, helping us with our climate change, and making a big difference. So they're all over the country. They're down in Costa Rica. I think they're looking at Guatemala. So they're an interesting story. Again, so that's one story, right?
Yeah, awesome, actually, yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I think they're awesome. So we've got a company called, which one do I love? John's Crazy Socks. So have you heard of John's Crazy Socks?
I saw him on TV somewhere.
They're all over the place, right?
Yeah.
So Mark and John Cronin. John Cronin has this passion for crazy socks. He'd wear all these socks with all different characters on them and stuff. And he graduated from school, and he really wanted to start a business. He couldn't find a job that he liked. And his dad said, I'll go into business with you. And they did. First year, they had $1.7 million in sales. They went viral, right? For socks, for something as common socks, right? Second year, they did $5.5 million. That was last.
Oh my God.
Right?
Wow.
Socks.
There's some socks.
It's crazy. Oh, and did I mention that John Cronin's got Down syndrome?
You did not.
I didn't, but he is the face of the organization, and he's the chief happiness officer.
Oh, wow.
And his job is to bring happiness to people. And it's funny, people go, oh, does he really know how to communicate well and so on? Well, let me tell you, I just spent 2 days at the UN with him. I've been with him before. He's a smart cookie. And he gave me this big hug, and he goes, thank you so much for having us here at the UN. I really appreciate it. So, I mean, that's an impactful business, right? So people with differing abilities, right, who are now being empowered to be entrepreneurs. So entrepreneurship comes from the most interesting places. So want another one? I'll give you another one.
Give me one more.
All right, one more. Which one do I love the most? So I'll tell you about a group called TRU Colors.
Okay.
TRU Colors Microbrewery, which is a place down in Wilmington, North Carolina. And the entrepreneur that was down there saw an opportunity, George Taylor. He witnessed a 16-year-old get shot. And he was like, what the heck? He's actually happens to be friends with the DA. And he reached out to him and said, what's going on? He goes, that was a gang-related shooting. He goes, we got gangs? He's like, yeah, we got gangs. He's like, I want to talk to the heads of those gangs. I want to see what the hell's going on. And they had beefs against each other. And he quickly learned that they were very entrepreneurial. So what he said was, listen, I've had 13 successful startups. He says, I'm going to invite you gang members, your top gang members, to come into this business, and I'll give you a piece of the business. But here's the condition. You need to be willing to work with rival gang members, and you need to stay in the gang.
Oh, wow.
They reduced gang violence by 95% in Wilmington, North Carolina. How was that?
That's amazing.
Yeah. I mean, it's just incredible. And I'm coaching one of their former chief marketing officer now, a guy named Corey Risborn. That's my Monday call. Every Monday morning, I coach Corey, and he's an amazing guy who's now evolved to creating, for Father's Day, Fathers Matter, which is an event he put together. Now he's teaching people who are formerly incarcerated. I had to learn, not ex-con, formerly incarcerated social media, to give them a meaningful skill in order to be able. So it's just great. Just the win-win-win that happens with all of these scenarios are amazing. As an entrepreneur, it's what makes us meaningful, but helps us get through the challenges. So I'm very grateful for the opportunities to be able to meet these entrepreneurs. And we've got a total of 7 stories. And if people want to see it, they can go to the impactu.film, impact, the letter U.film website. Or if they want to join, they can text the number and put a word. If you want at the end, I'll talk about that. Or would you rather I told them now?
Tell them now. Is it impactu.film?
Yes, impactu.film. And you could see the trailer there. Or if you text 66866 and the word impact film with no space, just impact film, that'll get you a copy of the trailer as well. And then you'll see when the movie's fully released. You got to see the future of this movie. Oh my gosh. Deb, this film is called Igniting Impact, and we're igniting impact. There's something huge going on about that. If you'll let me talk about it later, I'll share with you how this film is just going to change the world in a really.
Tell us now.
So I created a relationship. I have a relationship with the ICC, which is the International Chamber of Commerce. You know those Chamber of Commerces you've heard all about?
Yes.
Let me give you a little history about them.
Okay.
They were formed in 1919, 100 years ago.
Okay.
And they were merchants who were sick and tired of countries doing battle, going into war. And they realized that if they created businesses across borders, that their country was much less likely to go to war. And so they created this organization, which was not called the ICC at the time. It was called Merchants of Peace. And so the Merchants of Peace, which now has evolved to the ICC, the International Chamber of Commerce, is the only permanent observer at the UN. They have status to be able to sit in General Assembly and have a voice for this organization for entrepreneurs and merchants, right? They have 45 million members, which we have now come to agreement that we're going to be showing this film to the ICC members, all 45 million, to educate, inspire, and celebrate entrepreneurs that are making a difference. And at those film showings, usually it's going to be an EO member, an entrepreneur organization member, that would set it up at a movie theater. We would bring a panel, a couple of people who are doing things that are amazing inside their businesses to do an experience share. And then there's an exercise where people can look at the Sustainable Development Goals and say, yeah, this one's really interesting to me. And then be able to talk about how their business could potentially have a little shift in it. Because the truth of the matter is, as far as entrepreneurs are concerned, when we align with our purpose, when we're really in our zone, we're unstoppable. We don't allow anything. As I describe it to people, and I will be doing a keynote on this probably sometime next year, on really intense purpose. It sounds a little horrible, but imagine your kid on a train track in front of a train. That's your purpose.
Yeah.
And when you're on purpose, you don't let anything, you're like this, emails, text, phone calls, it doesn't matter. You are intentionally going after that. And when you can align with your purpose in such a passionate and clear way, nothing gets in your way. And as Biggie Smalls, I think, said, chase the dream, not the paper, because the money does follow if you do it right. So this film is a project which is ultimately going to transform the world of entrepreneurship by educating them about the Sustainable Development Goals, which is something most people don't know much about at all.
Right.
It goes from 2015 to 2030. So it's a 15-year project. So we're about 4 years in as of this September. Quantifying what's going on is a little challenging, but we're working on that. And now we entrepreneurs have been empowered to be able to go change the world, make difference through our businesses, thereby creating something that's relevant in our businesses, but also for the people who we employ through that business. I don't like to call people employees. I like to say I work with them, because it's the choice to show up at work every day. And if you're not doing something that's meaningful enough, we don't deserve you as a person that's going to work with us, right? That's how I feel about having alignment and purpose. And, you know, we talk millennial, we talk student entrepreneurs. Part of the film project also is to get to universities to be able to inspire and celebrate entrepreneurs. We actually have one, Daniela Blanco, who is a student who's in the film. She's a scientist who's transforming the way we make nylon in order to make it more sustainable, right? So it'll be students, it'll be entrepreneurs, ICC members who are both leaders and entrepreneurs. So my audience currently is over $45 million. And when you start a film project, you want to know, who are you talking to? And we're pretty darn clear on who we're talking to. Now it's spreading the message in a meaningful way and creating that purpose for people. Because as entrepreneurs, again, when we're looking at our businesses, do we take the money off the table, or do we stay in it? And if we're going to stay in it, it sure as hell better tie into our passions and make it super meaningful. And by the way, I'm also a huge fan of ESOPs, employee stock ownership plans, where we can give back to our employees in a meaningful way. I haven't done mine yet, but I plan to, and I think it's probably one of the most dynamic ways to change the culture of an organization in a super meaningful way, where everybody gets paid and the entrepreneur stays in the game while they're in their highest level of influence, while they're in their highest level of existence. Because quite honestly, as entrepreneurs, the reason we're called entrepreneurs, if you look it up in the dictionary, it says unemployable. We can't get jobs. Right?
That's so true, right? I mean, yeah. I mean, you, or at least one that you feel like you're willing to give your days and your heart to.
Yeah, some people start that way, and other people just can't get employed because they have their own way of doing everything, right?
Yes.
So being able to evolve to this is something that's just, I don't know, amazing, and it's a gift. And as an entrepreneur and being able to inspire others, I'm feeling so blessed as far as, my ability to live my why. And again, to inspire entrepreneurs and leaders to be impactful in the world. That's just who I am.
That's amazing. What advice would you give, Steve, to people who have an existing business, who feel that tug, that yearning to make a definite difference in the world, and yet they don't quite see how to get there from here?
So see my film, right? Because it'll give you a couple ideas. The whole goal of the film is to actually create a series around it. I'm actually working on my next film, which is on electric vehicles, electric cars, believe it or not, because that's a really big movement. But I do intend on making another film on impactful entrepreneurs for next year's project. So look at what you're passionate about. What's important to you in the world? And usually when you hit somebody with kids that are, in that before 18 stage, they're like, my kids, my family is the most important thing to me. And I get that. But your kids are going to go if you do it right, right? Your kids are going to go. And then you as an individual, or you as a leader, or you as with your partner, what is it that's really important to you? Are you biking on weekends? Are you planting trees? Are you a gardener? Are you a person that's doing electric car racing? I'm going to Formula E and I'm super excited about that.
Woo! Okay.
What is really important to you in the world? And the Sustainable Development Goals, this little poster I'm pointing to in the back of me, is a really great place to start, right? So it highlights a bunch of different areas, and inside of each goal are targets, but it's just an awakening of, yeah, that does matter to me, or that does matter to me. When we're going down the route of purpose, what I say to people is, pay attention to your passions. Pay attention to the things where you lose concept of time, where suddenly your mind is just joyful and you're thinking to yourself, wow, I would love to do more of that. Or you do spend time doing that. That's often a way of being able to do it. So I like to say the passions are the crumb trail to the purpose. And a purpose may evolve over time. But now how do we create a being more impactful in that one thing? And so that's why the work I'm doing with the film and with the UN and with the ICC, it's now just like, how high can we go? And that's the fun of it, because as entrepreneurs, we're definitely competitive, right? We definitely love to make stuff happen.
Yeah.
Right? And we get bored easy.
Yeah.
So creating projects, meaningful projects around that, and creating an organization that gets that. And if you can tie the two together, that's the magic, when you can tie the two together, because they're both a work in progress. There's no perfection. We don't get tied up with perfection. It's a disease, actually. It's not a good thing.
Right. If we were tied up with that, this interview wouldn't have happened, given the tech difficulties at the beginning, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, no, that's really great. Any words, I know this is a huge subject, but you're good at boiling things down. Any words for people who are interested in getting an influx of some of that energy in the monetary form into their businesses?
An influx of energy in a monetary form. So aligning with your purpose and your passion from a monetary perspective will require you to do some deep digging. my world, when I said I want to focus on impact investing, which is also known as ESG, environmentally, socially, and governance investing, it took me doing things, right? And I had steps. So I created an online tool, a school, an educational site called impactu.me, which allows people to learn from video vignettes. And there's a certification process that's part of that as well. So that's part of it. So you need to make steps toward that. Sometimes your management team doesn't get it. They're like, why is he suddenly wearing the tie-dye shirts and wearing the Birkenstocks? Well, the reality of things is you're letting your hair down. You're starting to become truly who you are. So when people they're afraid of being judged, right? And they're also afraid of, is this going to be a big waste of money? Well, a big waste of life would be where you knew how to sing and you never sang a song. And your business is your song. Your business is your work of art. And if you're not willing to be out there and do things, and you're only going to go with that money perspective, well, where are you going to be unique? How are you going to be able to make a difference with your business? How are you going to differentiate yourself? How is this going to happen? And it only happens when you're willing to be out there, where you're willing to take a risk, where you're really willing to say, screw it. I don't care what other people think. This is my purpose. This is why I was put here, and let me roll with it.
That's amazing.
That's awesome. Then all of a sudden, nothing bothers you. You're straight ahead. And I'm not looking at a kid on a train, kid on train tracks anymore. I'm looking at gold. I'm like, wow, that's exactly where I want to be. And this is what I want to do, because it's passion driven. And you can't stop it. It's like, it's just like a freight train, just keeps moving forward. So when people are looking for that and they want to monetize it, stop. Don't monetize it, because the moment you turn it. So I was teaching a course this weekend at some course on speaking, high level executives, and I sit there, and these were people who had English as a second language, a really well-to-do group. And I was talking to this guy from Ukraine, and boom, just kind of like this big dude and kind of stiff and stuff. And he stopped in the middle of his talk, and he goes, "Can I start over?" And I said, "No, you can't start over." And he finished his talk, and I said, "Let me show you what happened here." I said, "You went from here to here." I said, "The moment you stop using your heart to be able to express that to the world, to the people you're talking to, you got into your head, and then it was dollars and logic and so on." And when you're doing this, first align with that's the most important part, is the alignment, testing it out, seeing how it works, talking about it, testing maybe parts of your business. Here's a challenge that people do. All of a sudden they just go, all right, I'm done. I'm going to completely transform my business tomorrow, and that's it, because I believe in it. And that's a big mistake, because what got you here, right? Well,
right.
What got you here like immediately, but it's a transformation. It's like, how can we now take our business and add an element of it? Okay, now we're going to add a division of it. Okay, now we're going to add a whole, and it's going to grow, and the rest is going to go away. In my business, we've got a number of advisors that practice impact investing. And then we've got a number of people who don't even have an interest whatsoever. And it's like electric cars. There are people who own electric cars, and there are people who will own electric cars. It's just a matter of time. Right? So it's the same thing in your business. When we try to take our business and radically switch it over, that's where failure and starvation happens in a lot of people.
Right.
Also, don't focus on the dollars. That's where you create your work of art. That's where you start to take it, mold it like your piece of clay, and say, okay, this is what I'm going to do with it. Oh, that doesn't work. Smash. Next. Okay, I'm going to try it this way and this way. Oh, this is slightly offensive. Doesn't matter. Let's go to the next thing. And then all of a sudden you're going to be bravo, I got it right. And it just takes time. And the truth is, if you're able to do that over and over again, you got it right, because now it's you don't care that you have to keep trying. You're just what did Ben Franklin say? One step closer to success, right?
Right.
It is.
Right. I mean, I am so hanging. I think you're my new spirit animal, Steve. I mean, I am just eating this up with a spoon. But I have experienced something kind of like what you're talking about. I started as kind of a basic, generic, small boutique PR firm, turned into thought leadership. Then it kind of morphed into, female thought leadership. But when I really hit my groove and found my mojo was when I got, here's what's important to me. Mindfulness, living consciously, which includes your business, and beauty. My calling is that people experience beauty, and that might not seem to have a connection with business, but in my world it does. So, it's exactly like you were just talking about. I started adding in different elements that were quite distinct. Like I write a love poem to the brand essence of my clients. Nobody asks for that, but that's what Moxie does because it gives me great joy. And now it's something that sets me apart. Now, what I need to do is look at the SDGs. And, I have to say, though, as a small business, I look at that and I go, wow, that's for really big businesses, right?
Not at all.
No. Okay.
No, not at all. As a matter of fact, when I was introduced to the SDGs, there was an entrepreneur. His name is Sergio Fernandez de Cordova, an amazing human being. And he was the star of it all. He introduced me to the Office of Partnerships at the UN, and we were looking to do something meaningful within entrepreneurship. And he said, when the SDGs were unveiled, the Sustainable Development Goals were unveiled, Paul Polman, who's this, I think he's a former CEO of Unilever right now. He is in my film. They've got the world's largest brands, 1 billion people served every day with their products, right? Paul Polman was one of the people who stepped up and said, we're going to do this. We're going to change the world. These multi-billion-dollar companies were saying, we're going to change it. And what ended up happening, this is Sergio says to me, yo, dude, I'm telling you, when the UN came out with these SDGs, he says it was the billion-dollar companies that said they could do it. And guess what? They couldn't do it. It's entrepreneurs because we have the heart. We are the ones who care. And the truth is you care, Deb. Right? So much that you wouldn't give up on your business. You wouldn't allow your business to not have these values in place. You weren't just another cosmetics line in the list of things, and if it wasn't selling, we're dumping it. You were like, no, this is going to work, and I'm going to keep trying until I align with it. And guess what? We've got our whole life to create our work of art. And each step of the way, we're sitting there refining it because suddenly you're going to say something and somebody's going to perk up and you go, they perked up. Wait, they perked up when I talked about this. And it's important to me too. Awesome. Now all of a sudden I got some perky people out there that are willing to listen to this, so I'll perk up. So there's 401k plans, right? Those things that a lot of employers have for people. And guess what? The sin of it is that a lot of them put 3 to 6% of somebody's contribution in, right? And people aren't doing it because they don't trust the investments they're in. My mission is put impact investing in there so they know they're doing good with their money.
Oh, that's amazing. I love that.
So we're giving people, though, right, these young people who are not saving for their future, stability so that they can evolve. So I don't know where you come from your background in your employment or your businesses all throughout your life, but I've noticed that there are these poor people who are usually in their 50s or so, have been discarded from the workforce. And the good news is we're living longer, and the bad news is we're living longer, right?
Right.
Suddenly we need to evolve. Well, why don't we talk about that, where people who are these veterans, right, of industry are thrown to the street, right? And now they've got to recreate themselves as consultants, as entrepreneurs, as, whatever they are. Well, why don't we embrace that and say this is our evolution for us to have an opportunity to be able to reinvent ourselves so that we're not in drudgery and we're in alignment with the work that we're doing in the world. And maybe it's with an employer, maybe it's with somebody else, or maybe it's as a consultant, maybe it's as an entrepreneur to be able to bring this product of our lives or this service of our lives. That's an awesome way to inspire people. So I'm not just talking to young people, I'm talking to people who are now in a very mature business state in an experiential way, right? We've experienced so much in our lives, and now how can we create something even more impactful in the world, leverage the UN and their 193 governments research and say, yeah, that's really important to me too.
Right.
So
right.
You get the idea, so it's really empowering citizens and entrepreneurs to be able to do amazing things in the world.
Yeah, I love that you talked about reinvention. I personally, I think a lot of people think of reinvention as what you do when things go badly, like you have to, like a compensation. Yeah. I like to think, okay, sometimes that is what gives you the opportunity to reinvent, but I like to think of reinvention as, I'm going to try it out on you, like a new, true expression of who you really are now.
Yeah.
And I love what you're saying about business being a potential for that.
Well, so here we are, right? Purposeful. We know exactly where we got to go, right? We're straight at it. But then all of a sudden something bad happens to us, something that we didn't plan on. Deb, 90% of the time, it's something really amazing. And it requires us to deal with something that we weren't dealing with.
Yeah.
Right? A misalignment of sorts, of our values, of our passions, right? Suddenly it all comes together in a really cool way. And we're pushed to do something. So when you say you're forced to do it, I totally agree with you, but it's something that we should have dealt with maybe earlier and we didn't realize it, or we weren't bold enough or brave enough to deal with it. And now all of a sudden it's turned into something amazing after the fact. But when we first see it, we're like, oh no, not me again. Oh no. And then at the end of the day, I'm telling you, at least 90% of the time, it's, if that didn't happen, this wouldn't happen. That didn't happen, this wouldn't happen.
Yeah.
Just being aware and being able to, because you had used the word before, advice, right? I don't give advice, right? As entrepreneurs, we actually don't, our brains and our ears shut down when we hear advice because we don't want to be told what to do. That's part of our brokenness, right?
Oh, interesting. Yeah. Yeah, I get it. Yeah. Yep.
Right. So if I tell you what to do, you're going to say, okay, thanks, and go in one ear and out the other because I'm smarter than you because I'm telling you what to do. In the Entrepreneurs Organization, we have this thing called Gestalt language. And Gestalt language is where we experience share.
Mm.
So you're in a circumstance, we do these things called forums, which are like little boards of, it's really a very intimate group to be able to share our challenges, our opportunities, and so on, basically let our hair down and really be human beings and not be the stoic people who are able to battle every single thing. But we experience share. And it's, when I was in a similar circumstance with that is the way we talk. And this is what I did, or this is how it happened. And then the magic starts to flow because I have a situation that might be more, more relevant to you. You're going to be able to pull a couple nuggets out of there and go, oh, I get it. So you had an employee that was using their personal cell phone and made a $2 million error on somebody's brokerage account, and this is how you dealt with it. Okay, great, because that's good for me because I'm in this business dealing with that. So this is how we get to evolve as entrepreneurs, is through experience here, not advice.
That's really good.
That's why I keep telling you stories. We want stories.
Humans love stories. We love them. I have loved your stories. Thank you so much for sharing your stories and your hard-won wisdom with us today. It's super inspiring. And I hope lots and lots of people check out the wonderful resources you have at Impact You. What you want to tell them where to find Vanderbilt as well?
Sure, Vanderbilt Financial Group or Vanderbilt Securities. If you, that's our website, vanderbiltsecurities.com. That'll bring you straight to who Vanderbilt is. And more importantly, my passion project, which is impactu.film, which will give you the letter U, IMPACTU.film, and that'll bring you to join the movement. You'll get notified of other things that are going on. We're going to be doing some screenings in the areas of, actually globally, we'll be doing some screenings. So if you want to know when a film is coming near you, you can invite your kids. I'm actually doing a fellowship where I'm going to have some student filmmakers take the film and make children's versions of it, 10-minute children versions for entrepreneurship as well, because we've got, I don't know, probably hundreds of hours worth of film from all the filming that we've been doing.
Yeah.
So impactu.film is probably the place I really want you all to consider looking at, because it's got stories of really awesome people that are out there in the world making a difference with their businesses.
That's so great. And if you're interested in getting a little more Moxie in your life, I work with individuals and businesses, and you can go to my website, which is itstimeformoxie.com. And you can sign up on the email list and get the Moxie Diaries every Friday. And you'll find out about things like this amazing time we've spent with Steve. Steve, thank you so much for being part of Conversations with Moxie today. And I'll be sharing this with everybody I know.
Very good. Thank you, Deb. Be impactful.
Thank you. Bye.